John. Good to be with you.
Hey, Pete. Always a pleasure. Nice to talk to you.
This is our second episode of Building Capacity, which is our podcast focused on facilities leadership and educational environments. I have to say, I really enjoyed our conversation with Charles Mayfield in the first. I'm hoping to have a good one here in our second.
Charles was terrific, and I am really excited to talk to Trina. I know Trina for a long time, and she's been a great partner and colleague for me, so I am very interested in seeing what she has to say. So let's get over to Trina.
All right, let's do it. We are so glad to welcome Trena Marsal. Trena, you are the Chief Operating Officer for the Denver Public Schools. I don't get a chance to speak for John very often, but we're both looking forward to hearing a bit about you as a leader and how you're working with others there in Denver to help shape the educational experience for students. You still game to talk with us?
Great, thank you. Yes, I am honored to be here today.
Excellent. Not let Pete speak for me anytime that he wants. He's a good guy. So, Trina, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit about your journey to your current position, particularly the fact that you're in the education business. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are, why you chose the education field for what you do?
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to start by saying that I come from a family that's deeply rooted in service. So my relatives have been anything from educators, ministers, members of the military, and managers. My mom had 10 brothers and sisters, and only see 8 of them are educators. They were teachers or principals. And then a couple of them were ministers. And so you can say that all my roles have, from my family background, have been centered on just supporting others. And that was kind of my start. So that's my root around education, supporting people, supporting kids. But equally important to me with my why is my father's story. So my father was he was forced to leave school in the 8th grade, and he never had an opportunity for an education. So he had to go and work on a farm, and he was never able to go back to school. So was not able to get an education. But in spite of all of that, he instilled in his children the value of education. And I have a master's degree. I have 3 brothers and sisters that also have master's degrees. So my dad made sure that we had an education. And so I always wanted to support kids. You never know how many kids out there are just like my father. They have not had an opportunity. So I wanted to do my part to be able to contribute to someone else, to support kids, to support adults. And that's just the root of my journey.
That's awesome. You really have to have a passion to do what we do. You have to be committed to it. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for other reasons. So thank you for sharing that. Can you tell us some of the things that you've done to show people how you're supporting them in the bigger picture? Because that's interesting too, right? When you're talking to maintenance folks and custodial folks, that's a very specific task, but they're also part of a much bigger world. And I've always found in my job that supporting those folks in their position in that world sometimes takes a little bit bridging from them to the senior leadership of the organization, understanding the educational mission. But you obviously have done a lot of that very successfully. Could you talk a little bit about some of those things?
Yes, many of the strategic initiatives that I've implemented throughout my career have been focused on my staff and actually their development. I feel
Mhm.
like as a leader, I'm here to support my team. So I actually developed a professional development program. And I'm actually working on another professional development program here in my current role. All of our custodial staff have a development path. So they have classes, they have training. Our maintenance teams has specific trainings and professional development um, initiatives that they actually go through. The program I'm developing now, it's called the Operations Leadership Institute. So I call it OLLI, and it will give staff an opportunity across, whether you're a custodian, you're a director, you're a manager, you're executive director, and even in my role, an opportunity for growth And I think that allows staff to trust that you care. You invest in staff and show them that you're here to support their long-term goals, their long-term growth, and their career aspirations. I think that's where you establish the trust as a leader.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit about politics. How long have you been with Denver now, from the time you started as a temp all the way till today?
25 years now.
That's an amazing run. That God
Yes.
bless you. Uh, but so things have obviously changed with the administration. I'm sure at the state level, new administrations come and go. Could you talk a little bit about some of those situations and how you've had to navigate that in your position to keep the place running?
Yeah, I have been very, very fortunate that as superintendents have changed, I've had great support throughout the administrative changes here in the district.
Mhm.
All of the leaders that I have had the privilege to work under supported my growth. They supported our teams. You know, as we navigate at the federal level, at the state level, there's been budget concerns, budget reductions. I have been able as a leader, and I'm very data driven. I've been able as a leader to show that here's how we're performing, and in order to support the kids strategically, to support the kids for a safe and warm and welcoming environment, and how operations actually connects with the academic learning, that I've developed the trust with senior leadership to support our initiatives that we've had within our department. And
That's
Trina,
something that facet. Oh, go ahead, Pete. Go ahead.
like I say, Trina, you just because you just said support, right, several times when you're describing your relationship with superintendents. Do, do you have a mentor that you turn to as well in times like that where there's change? Is there somebody you talked about the importance of your family and getting you to this point, sort of in terms of your goals? But are there mentors you turn to? Because I think you were describing the support that you give to your team. I think leaders need support too. Is there someone or some group of people out there that you turn to?
there's several levels of, I will say, mentors that I've had throughout my career. Uh, Staff can be your mentor. So learning from your staff, what they need to develop and to support their growth. And then also each leader that I've worked under, I've been able to learn how they navigate challenges as that they've encountered through the district. I think right now our superintendent, Dr. Marrero, who's my direct boss, is a great mentor. I mean, we've faced a number of challenges throughout the district, and he's been able to navigate and make some unpopular decisions, but were the best decisions for our students. And seeing that resilience and how you can navigate through challenges, make unpopular decisions, but still continue to keep going. I think those are the type of things that have motivated me and helped me to continue to grow and to develop my leadership capabilities.
Cool. You mentioned data earlier, and that's something that really fascinates me. And one of the things that I have to say I was never able to accomplish in New York City, and that's why I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of the things that you might have done, is tying the work that we do to student outcomes in some way. Is there anything that you've done or are doing at Denver that you've been able to tie stuff together with student achievement?
So I work very closely with our chief of academics and our chief of schools to ensure that number one, the departments that I support, safe and welcoming environments, our climate and safety office. We've tied our data around um, where we have safety incidents, bullying prevention. We're working with our mental health teams because there's data that shows that the mental health of our students directly impacts their performance in the schools. So my team is responsible for ensuring that we do have effective bullying prevention programs in place, reviewing our data around uh, where we have safety incidents and support that's needed from our safety staff for our students. When it comes to indoor air quality, we have sensors in many of our buildings. We're evaluating our indoor air quality, tying that to, do we see higher incidence of absenteeism at certain
Mhm.
schools? You know, where can we derive where we may need interventions in those areas? Custodial cleanliness, that also contributes to a safe and healthy environment. We directly monitor our inspections that we conduct at schools. What is our building condition indexes? You know, and we have a specific score that we use at schools to make sure that we're meeting specific standards. But are there correlations between the data that we're seeing from an operational level and the data that from our students and academic achievement? We also have what's called the data mine that we conduct here within the district. And this is where our school leaders, we meet on a bi-monthly, actually it's a quarterly basis. So our school leaders at some of our schools, they report on their data, and they have an opportunity to make requests on what are some of the needs that they may have from our operational teams or from our school teams. For example, they may request mental health supports, or they may request operational support, whether it be technology or facility cleanliness. That's where we ensure that we're meeting the needs of our schools and where we can support them and intervene in areas where it may be impacting student achievement.
Who oversees that? That seems like a very complicated process and a really valuable one. Who oversees that data mine process? Is that the superintendent office? Like how is that managed so that it's coherent in terms of what you're getting?
It's a collaborative approach. Of course, our superintendent, you know, as our district leader, directly manages, but then we have our assistant deputy superintendent that's also supporting. And then from an operational standpoint, strategic operations, which is another support department within my team, manages the analytics and the data side along with our technology department. So they help build the technology structure to support the data mine and it's called a school vitals report. So that gives us anything from student data, student absenteeism, your SBF results, our READ Act results. So where do we see students that may need more interventions or support in their academic areas?
So the first thing that comes to my mind when you mention all that stuff is that it costs money. And have you had any issues with convincing people above you that have to fund these initiatives about the value of what it is that you're doing, what it brings to the table, and how it connects to kids? Because I've always found that difficult in my world when you're saying we want to pay for software that's going to analyze data, and people say, okay, but how is that mopping the floors or fixing the HVAC? What are your thoughts on that?
Our core mission is to educate kids, whether or not you're an operational department or on the academic side of the house. It's about educating kids. For any priority initiative, it's being able to present that business case to show that this will drive academic achievement. And if you can't measure it, then there's no way to be able to intervene to help support moving that academic mission forward. Um, in terms of funding, we right now have a $975 million bond initiative that just passed in November. Data was part of that, or our technology system was part of that to revitalize our whole process around the data mine and the school vitals report. And so we also outreach to our community. Our community saw the compelling need around a software system to support transparency of data, and it passed within our bond initiative.
Awesome. It's nice to have the public be able to put the stamp on it and give you that approval. That's great.
You are describing a big bond issue. Is any of that bond issue being directed to what I'll call pedagogical changes, different changing teaching styles that you're taking to students, or I know in the past you and I have talked a little about continuing technical education and some shifts in that. How are those kinds of shifts affecting the way in which you think about caring for the properties, the buildings, prioritizing things? How does that get infused into your decision making process?
Uh, so pursuit of passion was one of the categories that was within our bond program. It's called
You
Pursuit
said
of Passion, and that is a focus on career and technical education and also the arts. And so part of that $975 million bond is to in different parts of our district to create those hubs for arts programs and also for CTE. So we're embedding that into the curriculum. From an operational standpoint, it will be to build out the infrastructure, to work with our academics team to ensure that we're instilling the vision for how they are to facilitate the arts programs and the CTE programs, whether that's around, construction or um, metals and metalworks and those type of initiatives. How do we build that into the design of the facilities? Is this a renovation or a new infrastructure that we would need to build?
And I have a kind of a process question for you in terms of how you get, as a leader, how do you get pulled into those things? When someone decides they want to create this pursuit of passion initiative, um, is it created and then someone picks up the phone and calls and says, "Hey, Trina, how am I going to do this, or how much does it cost?" Do they talk to you in advance and say, "We want to move in this new direction"? Is this going to be a giant change, or it's going to be a little change? Where do you get pulled into that exercise, and how have you been able to make your impact known in the process?
And as the chief of operations for the district, I'm also part of the superintendent's cabinet. And within the cabinet, I collaborate with my peers from various areas. So the deputy superintendent, our chief of HR, chief of finance, uh, communications office. So we collaborate around what is the strategic vision for the district in collaboration with our superintendent. And so our role is to ensure that his vision is fulfilled. Well, and putting that vision together, we call it our strategic roadmap. Our superintendent, I'll call it a road show. So we're a very collaborative district. Our community had input into our long-term vision for the district. And so that vision was developed with a community voice in mind, as well as internal staff within the district. When we think about where we are as a nation and the economy, there is a lack of those, I'll call it service organizations. Where are plumbers? Where are mechanics? Our technology infrastructure or technology workers? Those are the things that when we think about the future of, and the future jobs that will be there for our kids, that's part of what we heard from our community and from our staff and from our parents. So that's all part of our strategic roadmap, is to how do we build those things out and how do we work together as a district and as a team to ensure that that vision is real. And we also have included student voice as we've built out our term vision. So we heard from our students that, yes, we will have students that go after their K-12 career, go into college. But there are some students that will move toward those technical fields as well.
And the students are giving you feedback about the CTE offerings and wanting more of those?
Definitely, yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Tremendous. Yeah, I saw a statistic recently, maybe last fall, that said there was projections we might need another 700,000 or more plumbers in the next 3 or 4 years, right? So everybody's feeling it, I think, who's trying to actually hire a plumber right now or get work done. And so it's tremendous that the district is there and that you've got the community support for it. That's really amazing. That's really
I've
amazing.
said many times that my plumber makes a bigger hourly rate than my lawyer and arguably provides a much more valuable service. So those
Yes.
jobs are important.
Very important. Yeah, I mean, it's not just about the careers. We have involved the students, and when we think about the safe and welcoming environment, what's that environment when students walk into their buildings? What does that mean to them? What does safe and welcoming mean to a student? Because it may look different. And this is a different generation. It may look different to us. I may think different around a student-centered environment and a culturally responsive environment than that student, walking in. And so that's important that we also hear their voice as well.
I'd like to ask it's not a political question, but it's kind of a political question. And if I had $1 for every person that's asked me in the past couple of months, well, what's going on at the federal level and what happens if the education department goes away and what's the real impact? And I want to ask you, are you dealing with the same sorts of questions on your end, not just from your administration and the people in your Department of Education, but parents, students, friends, and family? And how do you respond to that? And what are your thoughts on that?
I think that we have to be proactive. We have to have a strategy and a plan in place for the what ifs. I think from my lens, I know there's been questions around our food service industry, and our support for kids in that area. How do we prepare and to ensure that many of our kids in the district, this may be their only meal that for that day.
Mhm.
And so how do we ensure that we're able to continue to provide those critical important services for nurturing our kids, but being more proactive and thinking through strategies. We're not there yet, but thinking through the strategies of the important critical services that we're providing today. If there are changes at the federal level, how do we support our parents? How do we support our students in those areas?
This will be clipped, but that's a great answer, Trina. It's just a great response.
You don't have to clip it. It was a great answer.
Well, I think it's a complicated question to try to grapple with that you posed, John, and I think it's a pretty fluid situation right now. And so I'm impressed with the kind of care that you give to an answer like that, Trina, because it is as where it has been this entire conversation. It's focused back on students and parents, and that's what I love about talking to people in this particular industry is the passion that everybody has, not for bricks and mortar and plumbing, but for students and education and growth. I think it's
Yeah.
fabulous. It's fabulous.
You asked me a question previously about my staff, and it's throughout my career, it's critical for me, or I'll say important for me, that my staff understand that they are not just plumbers. They are not just HVAC techs. Uh, I think it was Superintendent Boasberg mentioned years ago that he started calling us everyone educators, and
Mhm.
my staff didn't understand that when they first started referring to operational staff as educators, but we are educators.
Mhm.
And to understand the value that you're bringing to the district, and that kids they need mentors, they need people that look like them, whether it be from a career standpoint, from a black female standpoint. uh, Kids see what we do, they see the value
That's
that we
right.
bring and how we support them. But when our staff show up every day, if they do not feel valued, then they themselves are not going to put the energy into the work that they do. And a lot of times a bus driver may just think, I'm just a bus driver. But as a bus driver, you're ensuring that that child has access to education. We
Hmm.
can't get them to the building, they are not educated. If that's the first person that they see in the morning, if our bus driver is not treating that kid with value,
Hmm.
if the kid does not feel like they're safe on the bus, then when they walk into that school environment, they're not going to be in the mental state to be able to learn. And so it's important that our staff understand the value that they're bringing, that they're mentoring those kids each and every day, that they talk to those kids, that they work with those kids.
Yeah, you don't meet too many kids who don't know the name of the custodian that works in the hall, or doesn't know the name of the bus driver, or all these other people that work to make it all happen. Absolutely.
That's right. That's one thing that I've talked about in the past as well, is that, people sometimes have a negative attitude towards the district because of the difficult things that we all have to deal with, and they tend to take that out on the superintendent and people like you, Trina. You take the brunt of their anxiety, their negativity. But when you talk to them and you drill down a little bit, they say, well, my principal is the greatest and my custodian is the greatest. The Department of Education is terrible, but my people are wonderful. And it's interesting to me to see how making those personal connections is so important to being able to make sure people are engaged in the program and are getting the educational services that they need.
Exactly.
I all the way back early in our conversation, you talked about Ollie, your professional development program, and I love that it's got a name that it's got an acronym that sounds like a name. It sort of personifies it, right? It connects it to the human side of it, right? Which makes it much more tangible for people, and they're much more
Hmm.
likely to engage it.
Do you have any programs that you're particularly proud of that you started in your role?
Our sustainability program. I am
Hmm.
very proud of our sustainability program. Uh, so I actually seeded the program. We started with more of an infrastructure, bringing in digital controls, ensuring that we had automated controls on our boilers, developing the specifications around sustainability, energy efficiency. Again, I'm going to go back to that word data, measuring our buildings and the energy consumption. And then we've actually migrated now into how do we embed sustainability into the curriculum. And
Hmm.
so our students gave voice to our climate action plan and to what are the goals for the district. Uh, how do we ensure that this is a student-led program now that we have a solid foundation, so taking it to the next level. And so our students came up with, here's the how we envision climate action happening within our district, within the curriculum, uh, how we embed that even within the learnings that they can take home to their parents, and to embed within the practices in their families. So I am extremely proud of that program, and we will continue to grow our program over time.
Awesome. Thank you. So, a person in your position, very high level, lots of responsibility. But as a woman and a black woman in this position, I am sure in a male dominated field like facilities and operations that you've had your challenges. Are there any situations where you faced some difficulties, and could you tell the audience how you dealt with those and how they all turned out?
Throughout my career, I've faced a number of challenges. Denver Public Schools, we 75% male dominated. I've been the first in many of my roles. I was the first director of operations and maintenance, the first Black female director of operations and maintenance. I was the first Black female executive director of facility management, and now the first Black female chief of operations for Denver Public Schools as well. Throughout my career, I've had challenges both internally and externally. Uh, Not even knowing my background, I've had staff that would question, my whether or not I was educated. Questions that you may not receive as a male or as a white male. I've had questions around decisions that may have been made, whether or not a woman has the emotional stability to stand up to some of the challenges throughout my career. And not that you have to prove yourself, but I've proven myself. I've developed trust within my staff. Part of that was providing support, uh, being an authentic leader. I
Hmm.
feel like as a leader, you want to get to know your staff, but your staff needs to get to know you.
Hmm.
And I have implemented programs to where you can, like, we have what's called, I didn't invent this one, but DPS teams. And it's was put in place to develop teams, but also part of that program was as a leader and as a sponsor at that session is to show your vulnerability, show who you are as a leader, your why behind the work, and what makes you who you are. So I've tried to come across to my staff as this is Trena. This is who Trena is at the core. Uh, how I show up as a leader, not just what I say, but in actions. I have an open door policy. Any of my staff can come and sit and talk to me, to vent to me, ask me questions about me, and so I'm willing to open up as a person. And I think that you still have hurdles. You'll still have challenges. Uh, I think that's going to happen regardless and where we are as a nation. But being able to be confident in who I am, and I've had to learn, and through my family background, those are some of the values that my mom and dad taught me is to be comfortable with who you are, uh, have values. My values are our family. My values are people and how I support people, how I treat people, my integrity. I will do what I say I'm going to do. But helping, and then your staff to know that these are my values, and you have an opportunity to respectfully, if I'm not living up to who I say I am, I'm a person that's open, and willing to sit and receive feedback, and that's how I am as a leader. I'm a servant leader, and I think that helps to build that trust and the support that you receive from your staff.
Well, that to me just describes how you've been able to accomplish what you've accomplished and how well respected you are. And I really think the people who are listening today, I hope they take something away from that, because everything you just said it's not easy to do those things and be open and be vulnerable. But you've managed to accomplish that. And I appreciate that myself, knowing you as long as I do. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
They're all absolutely great descriptions of what an outstanding leader should be, and it has nothing to do with gender or skin color or anything else, right? It's just about
Hmm.
being a powerful leader and being a role model for the
Hmm.
people around you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think when you think about challenges, it's just being willing to and able to adapt. Uh, Change is necessary,
Hmm.
and being able to be flexible when you have challenges, flexible when your environment changes. Those are the type of things we have to teach our kids. You know, Life can be stressful. And so how do we as leaders show up? And if we can't be flexible, then how are we going to teach our kids that it's all about change, it's all about adaptability and standing up to the challenges that you face. And any of our students, that see me and that I may look like them, I definitely want our students to be able to see that we can stand up through any challenges, any change that we face.
Do you see a difference between driving change yourself in your role, which is probably a big part of your job, is evaluating things and looking to see what needs to change and shepherding people through that process, and having change thrust upon you from other outside forces, changes in the priorities of the administration? Do you handle those things pretty much the same way, or are there differences?
I handle them the same way in that I think as long as you understand the why behind the change, um, and I'll use for an example staff reductions. Um, and I'm sure, John, you faced a number of staff reductions as well in your role. Uh,
Hmm.
there's things that I understand at my level necessary. It may not be uh, something that you at that time that's going to be supported by your staff, but in order to balance a budget, to look back at your priorities of the district, those things are it's necessary to be able to help your staff to understand the why behind the change.
Great point.
Um, Trena, it has been fantastic getting to hear from you about how you lead, how you guide things there in Denver, and how you work with everybody else on the team to make the right decisions for students and parents. It's just been a treat to listen to you talk about what goes on there in Colorado. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, really appreciate taking a few minutes without all the distractions of our regular jobs getting in the way. It was great to hear you unfiltered Trina. Thank you.
Thank you. And I appreciate you guys and I appreciate the time.